AMD fourth quarter earnings just now crossing the wire. Let's get to Yahoo Finance tech editor Dan Howley for the results. Dan, what do you see?
Shares are down more than 5%, but they beat on both the top and bottom line. We saw EPS of $1.53 on revenue of $10.3 billion. That was ahead of expectations of $1.32 and $9.6 billion. We also saw the data center revenue come in at data center revenue came in at $5.4 billion versus expectations of $4.97 billion. They also gave better than expected Q1 revenue outlook. The street was expecting $9.4 billion, but AMD says it'll come in between $9.5 and $10.1 billion. They also penciled in about $100 million of revenue potentially from the sale of their chips to China. So we're still trying to figure out why the street is negative now on AMD's stock price, despite this beat. Could be that it just didn't beat as much as they anticipated or perhaps wanted. This is all part of this ongoing AI trade where, we had saw these huge explosions in numbers. Now they're coming back down to earth, law of large numbers, obviously. And so that means that the growth over time is going to become a little more modest as we go on. But still, a big beat here on Q4 and Q1 outlook.
All right, thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Well, AMD reporting fourth quarter earnings moments ago. Let's get some analyst reaction here with Cody Akery, Managing Director and Senior Semiconductor Research Analyst at Benchmark. Cody, AMD just reported. What do you make of the results, Cody? What explains its reaction? Why are we in the red here in the after hours?
Well, I think it's just a matter of heightened expectations, especially after Intel missed so badly on their outlook, and they were supply constrained. The expectation was that AMD was just going to be killing it on market share gains, and I think they are. I think they're upside on data center by nearly $500 million, and data center shows continued strength in share gains. They're also seeing their client side business up 39% annually, and so they're seeing strength in data centers and in client. So I think they're just really able to take advantage of Intel's weaknesses and the strength of the broader market with AI leading the way on data centers and client being a relatively healthy space to be as well.
So that client segment, Cody, so that's chips going into laptops, PCs. One question there, and listen, it's not just a question for AMD, but this global memory shortage, Cody, and now people are asking, okay, does that mean PC makers, they're going to have to raise prices? That could dent demand and maybe impact AMD's bottom line. You've heard this. I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, there's definitely concerns out there regarding the health of the PC market this year. But like you said, with memory prices impacting consumer activity, and I think that's a valid issue. I think we'll see stinted demand throughout the year for PC units, but that's well known, and AMD continues to take market share in that space. So I think they continue to grow even in a softer market at the expense of Intel, unfortunately for Intel. But it really is all about the data center, the growth of their Instinct business, their GPUs. And I think that as 26 progresses, AMD starts to pick up momentum as we ramp into their new MI400 series 455 and their Helios rack system in the second half.
So that's where I wanted to go, Cody, with you next, is the products in the pipeline, Cody, the new GPUs, the rack scale server, that's taking direct aim at NVIDIA. How well positioned is Lisa Su's company here with those new products on the way?
I think they're very well positioned. I think in the back half of the year, we'll see the first real viable competition with NVIDIA's Blackwell platform. Now, this is still not behind. It's still a generation behind NVIDIA's most advanced systems, but it's the first viable competitor for a rack system in the industry. And AMD's products are likely to test NVIDIA's market share at a more price-sensitive entry point.
What about other competition, Cody? You think about AMD's own customers. You think about the hyperscalers, the big cloud giants, the Microsofts, the Amazons. What kind of competition could that pose for AMD long-term?
Yeah, I think it's a valid argument. Broadcom is the leader in the ASIC industry as they're working with many of the hyperscalers. You're seeing really all of the hyperscalers invest in their own custom ASICs for a portion of their really their workloads. It's more of an inference game for ASICs. And AMD and NVIDIA are going to have their place in the industry with high performance GPUs. I think there's room for both in a capacity constrained data center environment, but it is an area that we're watching as the ASIC, like you said, AMD's customers are motivated to use their own internal silicon.
Cody, to your very good point, listen, expectations here were high. I mean, heading into this print, this stock had been a rocket ship, right? It was up more than 100% over the past 12 months. Just a remarkable run. I know you got a buy on the name, Cody. I'm sure you get questions, though, about valuation. You still argue, listen, it's attractive at these levels.
Yeah, I do. I think that as we ramp through 26 and they look at success of the launch of their Helios platform and we start to see real customer adoption, remember they've got Oracle, they've got OpenAI commitments, they have customers that are on board and are committed to using AMD for the very, really for the early generations of their rack scale system. And so I think as the market starts to see the fruition and the evidence of these years of work that they've been putting in to become an NVIDIA competitor starts to play out through 26, the stock will respond nicely.
Let me ask you a question about China. I'm just curious, what do you think the opportunity, not just for an AMD, but more broadly, the names in your coverage universe, what does that opportunity look like long term?
Well, I think that China opening the door, at least tacitly, for NVIDIA and AMD's processors is a positive. It's a nice revenue contribution for Q1. They're saying $100 million. I think that's a drop in the bucket for the broader Chinese demand with Baidu, Tencent, Alibaba, and ByteDance all looking to buy processors. So I do think that Chinese activity is going to increase as the year progresses, and AMD will be a viable player in that market. AMD is obviously still playing catch up a bit in that business with to NVIDIA, but I think that as the year progresses, their momentum will build.
Final question, Cody. You got buys here on AMD and NVIDIA, but if I pushed you, Cody, would you say, listen, one of these is more of a buy? It's a strong buy.
Yeah, I think the rate of change with AMD is higher than what we'll see with NVIDIA. NVIDIA is fending off competitors like AMD and the ASICs from Broadcom, whereas AMD is really coming up from a minimal market share. I see AMD in their competition against NVIDIA very similar to what I saw with their competition against Intel a decade ago, where they came from nearly zero market share in the server industry to today, where they're nearly half of that business. Now, they benefited from Intel's mistakes, and I don't expect them to get the same hand up from NVIDIA that they saw from Intel. But I do expect AMD to be the share gainer in the space, and therefore its rate of change it will be more significant than NVIDIA's.
Cody, as always, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Josh.